With a look at the intramural softball rules here at Florida State University, I'm Director of Intramural Sports David Peters, here to walk you through how to play softball in our normal leagues, where to go to check in, make sure that your team is ready to go with some of the particular rules for intramural softball. We're going to walk through all of those here coming up in this podcast. So, facility information is on the list of things to talk about, also making sure that your players are ready with the right ID to come check in before their game. We'll talk briefly about the softball rules here, give you a refresher on how you play softball, pretty much like you've probably played slow pitch softball before, but a couple of little things we want to make sure that you're aware of so you can share with your teammates. Also league information, and know that everything we do in intramural sports is based off of our 7 principles of intramural sports, which include involvement, participation, fair play, and sportsmanship, and safety. Another big deal here in intramurals, making sure that your teammates can enjoy their participation and make sure they're not getting hurt when they're out there on the field. Where to go? Our facility out on the Southwest campus. That's the Rec Sportsplex. We'll play softball on the west side of the facility, 5 softball fields there with plenty of room between those fields to get warm up in as well. It's award-winning, the Rec Sportsplex, and so you'll certainly see why when you come out to play your softball games this season. No alcohol, no tobacco, no pets, and no glass containers. We are a tobacco-free facility, so not just smoking, but also smokeless tobacco is not permitted out at the Rec Sportsplex. Again, just a quick reminder to your players, maybe your fans, so they don't bring out the dog, because it wouldn't be permitted there at the Rec Sportsplex. If you need to know how to get there or share with your teammates how to get there, we have maps and directions available on our website at fsu.campusrec.com/IM. Player check-in takes place at the West Field House. So right in the middle of the softball fields is a building, and that's where you will go to check in, and check-in takes place there before you go out to the fields to play your game. So have all your players come to our check-in windows. They're very visible there at the field house, and bring their current valid FSU card. That's what we'll take to check them in. We'll add them to the roster immediately right there on the game side. So you don't have to send us a roster beforehand. We just add players as they check in there at the facility before your first game, and before any game during the season. You can add players up to championship night. On that night, we don't allow any additions. But before that, you can certainly add players. Again, the check-in window is there at the West Field House, and we don't check in at the fields. And know that the players in our spring league can play on 2 teams. One of them can be a men's or a women's team, such as men's Division II or women's league or sorority league. The other team, or the second team, would then be a co-rec squad in any of those divisions for co-rec. So a men's team and a co-rec team, or a women's team and a co-rec team, those are okay to allow players to be on 2 teams. But once anyone signs in on your team, that's their team of record for the whole season. We don't allow team changes in our league, so make sure as you pick up players that they know that they're stuck with you for the softball season and can't change to a different squad if they're not having a good time or not getting enough playing time. However, your roster size can be unlimited, so it may just be 10 on 10 in softball, but we encourage you to have more players to make sure that you have some subs, or maybe some people can fill in when some of your regular players can't make it. For more information about some other captain's responsibilities, such as player eligibility for some special classifications of players like former athletes and sport club players, also our forgotten ID pass, forfeits, defaults, and related fines. We don't want to have to charge you a fine for not showing up. You'll learn more about that, along with regular season and playoff formats, in the Team Captains podcast. It's available separately, and also online. You can read more about that in our 7 principles of intramural sports. One more thing that is very important to us in intramurals is sportsmanship. That's coming out and having a good attitude, respecting your opponents, respecting the game officials. Again, just having a good time and enjoying your participation in our program. You can do that by making sure you have good sportsmanship. We rate all of our teams on a scale of 0 to 4. You need a 3.0 average to make it through our league and into our playoffs. That's just maintaining good sportsmanship is a top priority. For more information, though, about the sportsmanship rules, the guidelines that we have a separate podcast for that too. It's available on our website. All right, let's talk softball now, and team composition is first. In men's and women's, it's 10 on 10. With an extra hitter, you actually can have 11 people in the lineup. We'll talk about that in a bit. But know that it's usually 10 on 10, 10 players in the field. 8 players are required to start a game, so you can play 8 on 10 if you have a couple people running late or just couldn't make it. 6 players or 7 if you have that at game time. That is a default. That is better than a forfeit. 5 or less at game time is a forfeit, and that comes with that fine I mentioned a little bit earlier. So make sure you get enough people there for your scheduled games so you can avoid that. Again, players need to be checked in there at the window and be ready to go at game time. So that's have the glove ready, have the cleats on if they're wearing those, and be ready when the game time comes around. For co-rec, the composition is 10 players as well. You can actually play with 12 with an extra hitter. And our co-rec teams require 4 players of each gender to be present at the start of the game. Legal combinations are 6 and 6. That's when you're having 12, 5 and 5. 5 and 4, 4 and 5, and 4 and 4. There's the combinations right there so that you have the right number of males and females out on the field and in the lineup at the same time. Again, 6 is a default, 5 or less is a forfeit, and we don't want those to happen. Let's talk player equipment right now and what is not allowed, and that is wrist and hand jewelry. So we're talking about watches, bracelets, wedding bands. Those are all things that we would have you take off. We feel like that's a safety issue, and so that's why we're going to have you not wear those. However, necklaces and earrings, those are okay here in our softball season, unless our umpires deem those as unsafe. So big hoop earrings, for example, would be something we might have someone take out because they're just not safe to play in. So if our umpires think that something is unsafe for your safety and for the safety of others, we would ask you to remove that to continue playing. A player is subject to ejection for failure to wear failure to take off something that we've asked them to do so because of safety considerations. All players have to have shoes on. Seems to make sense. Sandals and flip-flops are not allowed, and metal spikes and metal cleats are also not permitted. So a traditional baseball shoe without metal spikes, but regular spikes that are non-metallic would be fine, and many people wear those. Or just a regular pair of tennis shoes or basketball shoes, if you want to wear that, those would also be okay. But metal spikes and metal cleats are no good. And players wearing metal spikes or metal cleats in particular are subject to immediate ejection. That is a safety factor for our league. This is recreational intramural play, and so we do not permit these on any players in any one of our leagues at any division. Also in men's fraternity and co-rec leagues, we're going to use a 12-inch size softball. A little smaller softball is used in women's and sorority play. It's 11 inches. Players are encouraged to provide your own gloves. We have gloves available for checkout. Really a huge bin of gloves for both left-handed and right-handed players, and you can get that at the sign-in window by just presenting your identification there. We also have bats and balls as well available for checkout right there at the West Fieldhouse at the Rec Sportsplex. So you can get all of that from us for free. But if you want to bring that from home, certainly your glove is probably going to be better. Your bats are probably going to be better than what we have available for checkout. And we also have some personal safety equipment available too that you can also check out. Please note in softball here at Florida State University that all offensive team members must wear a helmet. That's when you're at bat, when you're on the base pass as a runner, or if you're in the on-deck circle. All of these players on the offensive team must wear a helmet. Helmets are provided at the field by Intramural Sports, so we'll have those there for you. Shouldn't be a concern. We have enough so that we'll have plenty to go around for those players that are actually on the offensive team out in the field. But we will have that, and we have additional helmets and some other safety equipment, as I already mentioned, available for checkout at the field house. So if you don't feel like you have the right sizes or enough, please see the field house. We'll be able to help you get the right equipment. But all of these players are required to have a helmet for safety considerations. All right, we also have a bat rule because equipment is very important in softball and you can spend quite a lot of money on a good bat. And so we have different bat rules that apply for which division you're in. In Men's Division 1, Men's Division 1AA, Co-Rec Division 1, Women's Fraternity and Sorority, kind of our upper division leagues, ASA bat rules apply and you can bring your own bat. And we'll talk about these rules in just a second. In Men's Division 2, Men's Division 3, Co-Rec Division 2, and Co-Rec Division 3, we require all batters to use the bats that are supplied by FSU Intramural Sports. This takes the advantage out in these most recreational leagues for having a very expensive bat that can really make a difference. And so if you're playing in our most recreational leagues, the Division 2 and Division 3 leagues, you're going to have to use our bats, but the upper divisions can use your own. Now, what is a legal bat? Well, there are softball bats that are approved by the ASA at asasoftball.com, and you can see the approved bats and the not approved bats there. Please note that softball bats must be stamped with one of the following certifying marks. You can see those on the screen here. Any standard baseball bat is illegal, and if it has a stamp but it might appear on an illegal bat list on the website, that actually takes precedent. So if you bought something new or you want to check that out, you can certainly check that by maker and model number right on that website, and that's what we go with. It's updated rather frequently, so be sure to check that before you start this season, as perhaps something that was legal before is no longer legal now. Penalties for illegal bats. On the first offense, please note that if we find that this occurs, all runs prior to that point by that team are erased from the board. So if it's 12-10 and the team with 12 runs is discovered to have an illegal bat, we would immediately wipe those 12 runs off the board and also call the batter out for using that. If you have questions about your bat, come over and ask before the game with our umpiring crew. We try to help you out with that. But if you have someone come in late, perhaps they bring in a bat that's illegal, that is the penalty if it gets used out on the field and is discovered. The second offense, the batter is ejected and the game actually is a forfeit to the opponent. So we tend to hammer out the things there on the first offense and really give a double check to any bats that might be out there so that they're legal and appropriate for the division and for the game that we're playing. Warm-up needs to occur out at the Rec Sportsplex in the designated areas, and you'll see those labeled by some signage, but we don't have warm-up that occurs right near the building because we don't want any overthrows or other things hitting folks who are here checking in. So you'll see that most of the warm-up areas are down the alleys, but there's very spacious, so you're not going to run out of space down this way in order to warm up for your game. You can also warm up on the field prior to your game if there's enough time after the previous game ends. All offensive players, except the batter, base runner, on-deck hitter, and base coaches, also have to remain in the dugout. So offensive players out playing will have a helmet on. If you're not out there playing, then you're going to be in the dugout, and that is required, and you'll see that, and we'll be reminding you to be behind that chain link fencing for your safety. The on-deck area is marked, and you can leave offensive equipment in that particular area. How long are our games here in intramural softball at Florida State? Well, 7 innings or the 50-minute time limit, one of those two. And we have clocks on our scoreboard, so you'll be able to see the running time throughout your game. Any inning which starts before that 50-minute limit will be completed. We have a 10-run rule that's in effect for teams that are ahead by 10 runs after 4 complete innings, or if the home team is ahead in the bottom of the 4th, they would also then take the win by mercy rule. So that is when that will be applied, and it applies throughout the rest of the game. So in the bottom of the 5th, if the home team is ahead by 10, then they would win at that time as well, and so forth. How about your lineup? Well, in men's and women's play, the batting lineup is 10 fielders, so all 10 fielders are in the batting lineup, and you can also include 1 extra hitter to total 11 hitters in the batting lineup. So that's an extra hitter. You have to declare that you're going to use this 11th hitter, or the extra hitter, that is, at the start of the game. So you can't add them for a late arriving player. You have to have all 11 players there at the start when you're having that captain's meeting with the umpire. The extra hitter, however, can be out there in the field, so they can swap out and you can bring someone else in, but they have to remain in the same spot in the batting lineup. So if your extra hitter is batting 8th, they can run out and take the catcher's position. The catcher batting 2nd just becomes the extra hitter, but they still stay in the 2nd position in the lineup. In co-rec, the batting lineup can include 12 players. It got the 10 fielders and then 2 extra hitters, because in co-rec you would need both a male and a female to enjoy the extra hitter position, as you can see right here. And again, same deal applies. You have to have all 12 there at the start of the game and declare you're going to be using those. If you have 12 players at the start of the game and just want to play with 10, that's fine. You'll just have 2 subs that are available to go into the game a little bit later. Now in co-rec, your batting order has to alternate, so male, female, or female, male. Doesn't matter who you start with at the top of the lineup, it just has to alternate throughout. If you're going to play with an odd number of players, however, that presents a bit of a challenge, because we still need to have that alternating lineup occur when you're batting. So if you choose to play with 9 players, you have a couple of options. Number 1, you can play with 8 players in the lineup and 1 substitute. So that also means 8 fielders and someone in the dugout when you're in the field. Or you can play with 9 fielders, and then every time the 10th position in the batting lineup comes up, that would be an out. So those are going to be your 2 options if you're playing with 9 players. And it's a strategic plan, so think about that and how it affects your team when you're there. Teams have to finish the game with 8 players, so if players have to leave because of injury, disqualification, or ejection, and then no one is available to substitute, you can keep playing as long as you have 8. But if you drop under 8, that will end the game, and an out will be recorded when a player who has left the game is scheduled to bat. So if you start with 10 players and someone gets ejected and you're down to 9, every time that ejected player is scheduled to bat again, that will be an automatic out. We have substitution, pretty liberal substitution guidelines here. We like to give people a chance to get in the game and out of the game as often as we possibly can, and while it stays fair. So substitutes and starters may re-enter the game multiple times, but if you enter the game as a substitute, you have to play 6 consecutive outs, which is basically a whole inning. So if you substitute in the bottom of the 2nd, you also have to play the top of the 3rd in the field before that person can be replaced in the lineup. So 6 consecutive outs for substitutes. Players may re-enter in the same position, so you can have someone play in the 1st position in the batting lineup, down at 2nd base for the 1st inning, put someone else in that position for the 2nd inning, and then the person in the 1st inning can re-enter in the 3rd, and the person who in the 2nd inning play can re-enter in the 4th. You get the idea there. You could sub in and out pretty much every other inning if you really desired. Again, a little bit more flexibility than perhaps your normal softball league. Please notify our umpire, though. We'll make sure that the score sheet reflects the right substitutions, knowing also that you are keeping score. We'll have the score sheet on a clipboard that will pass back and forth in between teams at each half inning, and it goes through our umpire who gives it a check over as well. So we'll make sure that you're recording that properly on the score sheet and also making sure you're keeping score properly. That's something our umpires will help you with. What about pitching? Well, in slow pitch softball, we have a particular arc in which your pitch must come in there, so it's not just a low line drive into the opponent there at home plate. It needs to reach this arc, which is at its peak 12 feet high, and at its minimum peak is 6 feet high. So anywhere in this range is how the pitch needs to be delivered in to the batter. And again, slow to moderate speed, so if it comes in too fast, we will call it illegal. So pitches that are too flat or don't have enough arc will be ruled illegal by our home plate umpire. Pitches that come in too fast, and also pitches that come in too high in the arc. So if it's just really a rainbow that's coming in with too much height, we will also rule that as an illegal pitch. And it's an automatic ball. It does not have to be swung at by the batter. A pitcher has to start his or her motion with at least 1 foot on the pitching rubber. A pitcher must pause while touching the rubber before each pitch, and the pitcher can step in any direction during his delivery. So most folks may step ahead, but we do have some folks who walk up and step backwards as they throw the ball. Those would be legal ways to deliver a slow pitch softball pitch. as long as it gets in that arc as well. Now here's something of special note you want to make sure that your players know as they come out, and that is what they start with when they step up to the plate, and that is 1 ball and 1 strike. So they really just get 2 strikes to get a hit. So every batter when they step in already has 1 ball and 1 strike on the count. Foul balls on the 3rd strike do result in an out. So foul outs occur rather frequently actually in intramural softball. And note that there is no bunting allowed. That's actually squaring up for a bunt or chopping down at the ball. You can't take the bat and chop at the ball so that it just goes straight down into the ground. Those are both considered illegal. Batters instead have to take a full swing at the pitch. You might take a full swing at the pitch and it might just dribble 4 feet in front of the plate. That's okay, but you can't intentionally chop at the ball or bunt the ball in slow pitch softball. There are no limit for home runs in any of our regular slow pitch softball leagues because the distance to the outfield fence is quite a long one. 315 feet in all directions on all fields, so if you're hitting a home run, it's quite a shot. And they don't happen very much, so we don't have a limit on those in any league that we have. Fielders and runners. Well, if you're making a play on the ball in the fielder has the right to any part of the field, and that includes the base paths. So let's say that the shortstop is running up to scoop up a grounder, and that happens to occur between 2nd and 3rd base. The runner must avoid the fielder making this play. They can't truck them. They can't get in their way in any sort of way. That would be considered an interference, and we would actually rule the runner out in that case. So note that the fielder has the right to make pick up a grounder in the infield, to try to catch a pop fly that might be in the base path, and in that case, the runner should just make every effort to run around that particular player. They can run outside the base path if, in fact, they're running around someone who's about to catch a fly ball, for example. A runner may not run out of the base path if someone is there waiting to tag them. Those are different scenarios there, and our umpires will try to do our best to make sure we're ruling on those properly. No trucking. It seems kind of silly to talk about that like that, but we don't allow you to run over someone at any base or at home plate. We're leaving that to Major League Baseball, and I think we've seen that can even be pretty hazardous for the folks up there in the professionals. So we don't certainly allow it as a safety factor in our league. Runners either have to slide or give up, and give up just means slow down so that they can be tagged or slide there at any base, including home plate. Trucking results in ejection of the person who runs over someone, and they're still called out. Courtesy runners. A courtesy runner can be used in the event of an injury and upon agreement with the opposing team captain. So perhaps you have someone who's having a tough time running around the bases. They can have a courtesy runner. If they get a single to first base, they can be replaced by a courtesy runner. Note that the courtesy runner must be the player of the same gender and co-rec that recorded the last out. So you don't get to choose just your fastest runner off the bench or a sub, but the last person who recorded it out in your lineup would be the person who would go out there and run as a courtesy. What about an overthrow? Those happen on occasion where you just shortstop takes the ball, heaves it over to first base, and it's too high to be caught by the first baseman. Well, the award for those things, if it lands out of play, perhaps it goes so high that it goes over the fence there at first in that example. Well, it's when the time the fielder releases the ball for the throw, that's when we make the determination of where the runners are placed on the field. So in that example, a grounder to shortstop, and he throws it over, or she throws it over the first baseman's head and over the fence. The award for the person who hit that ball, the batter, would be first base and second base. They get 2 bases, and so probably when that ball was thrown, the batter runner was not yet to first base. So they get first and they get second. That's kind of how the awards go, and that's why we're detailing that here. Notice that, again, the overthrow, like I just mentioned, there's what might happen in the infield, and similarly, that's exactly the way it's ruled in the outfield as well. So if the left fielder just chucks it over a fence when making a tough throw, we would award 2 bases based on the time when the throw left the left fielder's hand. Fielding positions in softball look like this. There are 10 positions out there, maximum of 6 players, including the pitcher and catcher in the infield, a maximum of 4 players in the outfield, and everyone must supply a catcher. Even if you're playing shorthanded, you must field the catcher position. In co-rec, take a look at this. Our restrictions in co-rec are that you have 2 males and 2 females in the infield, that the pitcher and catcher be of opposite gender, and typically that also then means that if you're playing 10 on 10, that you have 2 males and 2 females in the outfield. The way we've configured it here on the screen, this is just an example. There's no restriction to say that a female has to play second base. That's not the way it works. Just that you need to position 2 females in the infield and 2 males in the infield, as you can see here, but you could have the males over here and the females over there, or whatever you decide works best for your co-rec team. So those are the restrictions in particular for co-rec, at least in the field. What about at other times, such as here at the plate? Well, in co-rec, when a male player is walked, he gets second base. So step on first and run on down to second for every male player who is walked. And people who are already on base only move up bases if they are forced to move up. So if you have a runner on first, that runner would be forced around to third base. If you just had a runner on second, he too would also, or she, would be forced over just to third base. Not everyone gets 2 bases is the idea there. Now note, when a female player walks in co-rec, she is awarded first base only. So the guys get 2 bases, the ladies just 1 on a walk. Now with nobody out and 1 out, following a male walk, I said the male gets second base, well then the female in the lineup is going to be required to go into the batter's box and hit, just like they were going up for any other plate appearance. When there are 2 outs and a male player is walked, there's actually an option for our females. They can step up to the plate and hit, or they may opt to take a walk, where they just signal to the umpire they're going to take a walk, and then they need to come on up to the plate and jog on down to first base, and then the next male in the lineup will go ahead and hit. This rule is in effect so that teams don't walk some player to get to another player in the batting lineup. So you can see, particularly with 2 outs, if you're trying to get the easy out, perhaps you think that's a female. It's certainly not always the case with the talent we have in our leagues, but with 2 outs, if a male is walked, the female can step up to the plate and hit, or has the option to walk. Those are what happens in particular in co-rec. And those are really the 2 main differences in co-rec, in addition to some roster adjustments and lineup alternating that we talked about earlier as well. All right, how do you make sure that you're in our league? Well, that's take the captain's exam. So you've seen the rules summary right here in our podcast. We have those other podcasts available for team captains and our sportsmanship podcast as well. Those all will help you take our captain's exam, and you need to do that by the required deadline. You'll see that on the website in our planner, so make sure you do that by that time. When that time comes around, you have to achieve the appropriate score too. If you have any changes in your registration, let us know by email, such as changing your team name or some other requests. You need to do that before the end of registration period, and you can learn more about all these deadlines and how to take the exam right on our website at fsu.campusrec.com/im. It's going to rain. It happens here in the state of Florida. So how do you know if it's rained and if we've rained out games for the night? Well, a number of different ways. One is on the fsu.campusrec.com website. Here on the intramural page, you can actually see on the right side it says current facility status, and that's where you'll see if our facilities are open. In fact, in this case, they are open, but it would say here, for example, Rec Sportsplex closed, softball's canceled. All those sorts of notes will appear right here. And you can also see our rain line number, which is 850-645-RAIN. That's 850-645-7246. We put a recorded message on there as well to help you out, so you can give us a call. You can check our website to learn about rainouts. Don't assume that just an afternoon shower is going to rain out games, and sometimes we'll just wait out a shower and continue playing. So we encourage you to call or check our website to get the most up-to-date information, noting that also rained out games in the regular season typically are not rescheduled. We usually just don't have enough time to do that before the end of the particular term we're playing. But if we do rain out playoff games, we will reschedule those automatically, because we have to have those in order to get to the tournament's end and crown a champion. And we will post new schedules on our website. We would encourage teams to just go on and check. Those are usually updated by the next day following a rain out. For more information about our season, including the Team Captain's Guide, those schedules, also the playoff draw meeting information, playoff brackets, and more rules to softball, the complete rules are all available on our website at fsu.campusrec.com/im. All teams with the required sportsmanship average do advance to our playoffs. So even if you are 0-4 in our regular season, we're sticking in the playoffs because once you have a good time, you get that opportunity to play another game, and perhaps you'll be in a different division where you have some teams that are similarly with your skill level. So learn more about all of this, but know that all teams make the playoffs in our league regardless of record, as long as you have the sportsmanship right. If you have more questions about softball and what we're doing in intramural sports, well, give us a call at 850-644-2430. You can send us an email through our website at any time, and that's once again fsu.campusrec.com. That's a look at softball coming up for this intramural season here at Florida State. Good luck and have fun. We hope to see you out on the fields at the Rec Sportsplex or anywhere in intramural sports.